Russian drones that we can deploy at these events. I'd love to visit with you on that at a later date. And thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with my colleague from Texas. It is a tale of two cities. Secretary Noem, Trump administration, you're going after the worst of the worst criminals, and we agree with you. The problem is 70% of the people you've arrested have no criminal record. You're going after non-criminal immigrants, U.S. citizens, and permanent legal residents. Donna Hughes Brown, Irish citizen, green card holder, 48 years in the United States. She also happens to be the mother of a U.S. Marine, sister to a retired Army colonel. She's in ICE detention since July. She tried to come back from Ireland, arrested, has been there since then. Her crime? She wrote 2 bad checks for less than $80 a decade ago. You arrested her, she's in custody. Her husband, Jim Brown, came to us and told us her story. Jim told us, I voted for President Trump because he promised to go after criminals in our community and not people like my wife. If I can, I'd like to play a video for you. Then he also voted for President Trump.
Yes, sir.
Why did you vote for him?
Because I was an idiot. 80% of the evangelical Christian people were lied to, if you really want to know the truth, and that's exactly what happened. They said criminal, and I believe criminals need to be off the street.
I just want to make sure people watching this understand who you are.
My wife and I, when we don't work, we're ministers. We help the needy. That's what we do. And that's who they're arresting.
Now, we've got Mr. Jim Brown before you. He's standing up. Hopefully you can talk to him a little bit. These people, Donna Hughes Brown, are not the individuals that should be deported. Another case, Narciso Baranco was beaten and arrested by masked agents while working as a landscaper. He's an undocumented immigrant, 30 years in this country, not a traffic ticket. Mr. Baranco is also the father of 3 U.S. Marines. 3 Marines. You want to make a movie of people like this. A man who comes to this country, instills patriotism in his kids. They swear an oath to serve and possibly give up their life for this country. We'll play a video on this as well, please.
Masked federal agents were filmed pinning a man to the ground and repeatedly striking him in the head and neck before putting him in an unmarked car. The man in the video has been identified as Narciso Baranco and is the father of 2 active duty Marines and 1 Marine veteran. The Department of Homeland Security said an illegal alien was arrested by Border Patrol agents after he, quote, assaulted federal law enforcement, adding that Baranco, quote, swung a weed whacker directly at an agent's face. Video shared by DHS and reviewed by CNN shows Baranco running with a weed whacker, but does not show him striking officers.
I also have with us today Alex Baranco behind you, a retired Marine. That's his father. And Alex, on behalf of myself, members here, I want to thank you for your service to our country, and we also thank your brothers for serving our great country. Thank you very much. Got another case. George Ree, 25-year-old, native of California, my home state. He's a U.S. citizen, Army veteran who served in Iraq. Well, on his way to work, he came to an immigration checkpoint, pulled over, I don't know where officers deployed tear gas on him, broke his car window, pepper sprayed him, and dragged him out of his car. An American citizen held for 72 hours without any charges, wasn't even given the opportunity to shower, to wash off that paper
Gentleman's
spray.
time's expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest.
Mr.
for 5
Chairman, I
minutes.
have 2 articles I'd like to present for the record.
Unanimous consent.
Under President Trump, an agency intended to keep Americans safe has diverted resources from child abuse, trafficking, and terrorism to immigration enforcement. Second is this letter from my Orange County Sheriff, Don Barnes, essentially talking about all the individuals under Prop 50 referred to ICE 2025 year to date. 50 of them,
Without objection.
ICE never showed up to pick them up.
Without
Mr.
objection.
Chairman.
I will
Mr. Chairman.
entertain. UCs at the end of the hearing. I will entertain all UC motions at the end of the hearing. We have witnesses. I want to make sure everybody has time. So if we
And this is the moment where we have to stop pretending this is about border security in any meaningful sense of the word. Because what Congressman Correa laid bare in this hearing is something far more unsettling. A federal enforcement system that has drifted away from justice entirely and is now operating on raw authority, unchecked power, and political theater. This isn't law enforcement. This is state overreach dressed up as toughness. When a Marine's mother is thrown into ICE detention over 2 bounced checks from 10 years ago, that's not public safety, that's cruelty. When a working-class landscaper is beaten by masked agents while his sons wear the uniform of this country, that's not order, that's intimidation. When a U.S. citizen and Iraq war veteran is tear-gassed, dragged from his car, and held without charges, that's not security, that's a civil liberties crisis. And what makes this even more damning is that these are not edge cases. These are not accidents. These are predictable outcomes of a system designed to dehumanize. Because when immigration enforcement is driven by quotas, optics, and political messaging instead of evidence and proportionality, the system doesn't distinguish between criminal and convenient. It targets whoever is easiest, whoever has the least power, whoever can be swept up without consequences. That's not a bug. That's the feature. And let's be very clear about something else. The people harmed here are not outsiders to American society. They are woven into it. They are military families, faith leaders, veterans, caregivers, workers, people who believed that doing the right thing would protect them. And the system still came for them. That should shatter the comforting myth that only other people are affected by these policies. Because once the government normalizes detention without real cause, once it normalizes masked agents and unmarked vehicles, once it normalizes violence followed by press releases that don't match the video evidence, no one is truly safe from that power. This is what happens when fear becomes policy. When political leaders decide it's easier to look tough than to govern responsibly. When immigrants are reduced to talking points, and enforcement becomes a spectacle meant to reassure a base rather than protect a society. And the most painful part of this hearing wasn't the videos or the testimony. It was the quiet realization that the administration knows this is happening and is choosing to defend it anyway. No remorse. No recalibration. No accountability. Just justification after the harm is already done. That's not leadership. That's abdication. What Correa did in this moment was force Congress and the country to confront the human cost of policies that are usually discussed in abstractions. He reminded us that behind every statistic is a family, and behind every arrest is a life that may never fully recover from the trauma inflicted by the state. Because make no mistake, detention is trauma. Violent arrest is trauma. Being told your service, your citizenship, your family's sacrifice doesn't matter is trauma. And when the government inflicts that trauma disproportionately on immigrants, people of color, and working-class families, it stops being neutral enforcement and starts looking a lot like systemic injustice. This hearing wasn't just about immigration. It was about whose rights are conditional, whose dignity is optional, whose suffering is considered acceptable collateral damage. A country that claims to honor veterans while brutalizing their families is not confused, it's compromised. A government that speaks endlessly about freedom while detaining people without charges is not protecting democracy, it's hollowing it out. And history has shown us, again and again, that when a state learns it can abuse power against one group without consequence, it never stops there. That's why moments like this matter. That's why these names matter. That's why this hearing should not fade into the background noise of the news cycle. Because democracy doesn't collapse overnight. It erodes quietly through normalized abuses, through silence, through the willingness to look away when the victims are politically inconvenient. And what Korea did here was refuse to look away. If you believe no one should be above the Constitution, comment below. If you think accountability still matters more than political theater, hit like. And if you want more honest, human-centered breakdowns like this, subscribe, share this video, and stay engaged. Because justice doesn't defend itself, people do.